Hello, I'm Bob Ganzak, and this is Motivation U, the podcast. Welcome to Motivation U, the podcast. My name is Bob Ganzak, and we're coming to you live from two different places today. We are at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill at Celebration Point inside the coach's podcast room. And I happen to be in my home office doing this program from Valdosta, Georgia, and rainy Valdosta, Georgia. But we're here together, all of us together here, talking about leadership. And the premise of this program is that there's great leaders out there that don't get the notoriety or the applause that some of the individuals that maybe have bigger names get, right? But they're people that make a difference in people's lives every single day. And we like to talk about them and highlight them on the show. Today, what I wanted to do was I spent a lot of time studying leadership and trying to find out what makes people tick and what makes leaders successful and how they are able to accomplish the things that they do day in and day out. And about a month ago, I came across this great article in Forbes. And it was put together by a gentleman by the name of Xavier Preterit. And I hope I'm getting Xavier's last name correctly. And I read this article and I thought, wow, what a great concept for the podcast to answer these questions. And as a leader, we're not only responsible for our own success, we're responsible for the success of our team, the employees, and therefore also the business. And as an entrepreneur, as he writes in his, your business is going to be better for the months to come when you continue to ask yourself these questions. So in this article, Xavier asks 7 questions that every leader should ask themselves. And we're going to discuss those today and really, I'll give you a little bit of my feeling of it, things that I've seen and that I've interacted with great leaders and different leaders in different worlds over the last 40 years. And, part of what we're trying to do is help each and every one of us become better leaders. It doesn't matter where we're working or what our job title is or what our role is. It's to become better leaders. And what are the questions that we should be asking ourselves on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis? And how often should we really take a look at what our leadership development is as a leader? Because sometimes we get to this position and we say, okay, I've made it. That's not what it's about. One of my favorite sayings is, whatever it took you to get you to where you are is no longer good enough to keep you there. So you have to constantly be developing your skills and moving forward. And that's a vital, important part of leadership. And as you well know, if you've been a viewer of this, or if you haven't, my role as a Dale Carnegie instructor is to help people develop leadership, communication, confidence, people skills. And that's what we do on a consistent basis. We would love to have your feedback during this entire program. If you if you would like to, just go into the comment section there in Facebook and write in a question, something, and we'll get you an answer for that. Or if you want to make a comment on some of the questions that we're asking. So let's get into some of these questions. The first question that he writes in this article is, what motivates me to be a leader? And as he says, you might start asking yourself, which is a very powerful question, because what is it that motivates you to be a leader? A lot of people, a lot of individuals think that they have to be a leader to grow in their career or to continue up that corporate ladder. And that's why a lot of people want to go into leadership. A lot of people think it's a panacea. It's that great area to go to, is to be a leader. And then they find when they get there that either A, they haven't developed the skills to be successful at it, or it just wasn't what they thought it would be. I see that a lot in sales, where great salespeople think that they want to be the sales manager. And then when they get there, they're not getting the same endorphins from the success of others, because that's really what you need to have in that area. So what motivates you to be a leader? What are the things that will drive you to continue to want to lead others? And as Xavier writes in here, the answer will determine whether or not you should ask yourself any other questions, because you have to make sure your values take precedence over the rest. So what motivates me to be a leader? Some of the things that I've seen, the wrong ones, is people want to have control. They feel that is an important part of the business world, is to have control. They don't like being told what to do, quote unquote. I don't like people telling me what to do. If I was a leader, I would be able to tell others what to do. Not really what motivates you. And there isn't really a correct or a wrong answer for that, because it's your style. But what does motivate you to be a leader? When I look at other individuals, you study some of the great leaders of our time, a lot of it was organic. It was because other people weren't moving forward at that time. I remember my first job as a sales manager. It was a local sales manager of a radio station in Michigan. There really wasn't a drive. It was somebody else that drove me to it. When our sales manager was let go for a variety of reasons, I wasn't seeking that position until months later, when my boss called me into his office and said, "Hey, look, that so-and-so is not coming back, right?" I really didn't pay attention to that. I said, "No, I thought he was on a leave of absence. No, he's no longer with us." I said, "Okay, so what are the expectations?" And my general manager asked me, he said, "Bob, would you like to apply for the job? We've got a lot of individuals that have applied for the job, but you haven't stepped up. Why not?" Well, I was so focused on my selling career and trying to raise a family. I had a son at the time and bills to pay, and I was focused on selling. And he looked at me and he said, "We think that you have the qualities that we're looking for in this position. Would you like to apply for it?" I said, "Okay, I will." He said, "You got the job." It was the way it was. So I wasn't thrust into that from the standpoint of my desire. It was somebody else that saw something in me that wanted me to take over that role. And I had to learn what everything was that that I needed to do. And it was very difficult. It was very difficult to let go of my, the things that drove me, which was the selling and helping my clients and hitting my goals. And all of those things were all singular to me. If you want to say it was a little bit selfish, yes, it was, because I was driven by a lot of things to be the best salesperson I possibly could at that time. And it was very difficult to shift my thought process to becoming a sales manager, where I got the same, as I mentioned earlier, endorphins from watching other people succeed and helping other people succeed. So what motivates you to be a leader? That's the first question that you really want to ask yourself. What is that driving force? I was very fortunate that it wasn't my driving force, because I may have gotten into a leadership role for the wrong reasons, or thinking the wrong reasons. But being thrust into that, it was very helpful to me that somebody else saw something in me, which tells me about their leadership skills too, is they were trying to move the company forward, but also trying to help me as a young dad, a young business person. They could see some steps down the road that I was unable to see at that time. So that's the first question you really want to ask yourself, is what motivates you to be a leader? And that question and the answers to that question may deter you from wanting to be a leader, because there's a bigger responsibility that takes place at that time. So that's question number one. What motivates me to be a leader? The second question that leaders should ask themselves, according to this article, are, what are my goals, and are they clearly communicated? Now, one of the things that we teach in the Dale Carnegie class, which is how to be clear and concise in our communication. And are you able to clearly communicate your goals to your team? And what are your goals? In this article, the gentleman writes, in a way, a leader works like an orchestra conductor. They make sure that all of the members of the group use their talents to bring their personal vision to life. Let me repeat that. They make sure that all the members of the group use their talents to bring their personal vision to life. That's an interesting concept from that standpoint. He also writes, in order for you to see your team achieve what you hope for, it is crucial that you share your goals with each of the employees. Take the time to clearly define these goals. And if your goals are not clear for you, it is very likely that your team will be in the dark too. So what do you think he means by that? What are my goals? Do you have a clear idea of what your goals are? And are you able to communicate those to your team? What I see in here, I love the idea of the orchestra conductor. So they're making sure that this huge orchestra, the strings, everybody is in the same thought process, putting things together to make this song be clear and come out together. But every individual must be able to let their talent shine and work within unison. Many times we see in companies where we have a lot of great people within the organization, and yet they clash because they're not able to bring those ideas together. So what are your goals? What are my goals? And can I clearly communicate that to other people? big part of leadership. And that is a vital thing. Helping other people grow and bring their talents out. It's not like you're controlling people and you want to change them. One of the analogies that I like to use is that we tend to, to hire people in the interview process. We look at them and then we try to change them once we bring them on their team. Instead of letting, you're hiring that talent, let that talent shine. And then how can you blend it with the other talents that are within you? You're not trying to change people. You're trying to bring in a group of individuals that have unique talents and get them to work together. So, and how does that fit with your goals? A very important part of leadership is having all of these different pieces sound well together, going back to that orchestra analogy, sound well together and blend together. When you see a great team working, it's that, and it doesn't work all the time. It's not like you set it on a path and it just goes down that road. You've got individuals that all have different dreams and goals and desires. Sometimes they get off that path, and you've got to help them get back onto it so that you're working in unison with your team. And I love that question. What are my goals, and are they clearly communicated? The third question out of these 7 that this gentleman asks is, am I an example? As he writes here, this is a hallmark of any good leader. And what will motivate employees to follow you? Take a step back and take stock. Put yourself in place of your team members. Do you embody the values that you ask them to adopt? There's nothing more disheartening to an employee than to see their superior act in a way that is contrary to what they expect from them. Always remember that the basis for strong leadership is the ability to inspire the people around you. Are you that example? Are you that example? One of the things that just amazes me is the studies that have been done on employee engagement. And there are 3 things that drive employee engagement. One is the relationship with your immediate supervisor. The second is belief in senior leadership. And the third is pride in the organization. So a lot of times when I'm coaching people or working with individuals, one of the things that my team just won't do this, they're not engaged, and we want to put labels on people. Oh, it's millennials, it's this, it's COVID, it's that. So many excuses come bouncing out of the people's mouths. And the first thing I say to them is, the number one driver is an individual's relationship with their superior or their supervisor, which is you. So you want to go look in the mirror and say, are you setting that example? Give you a true story that happened in my world. My son, Matt, had never worked for me in the radio business until like 2003, 2004. He was a young guy in his 20s. He had been very successful. He had started working when he was 15, had worked many jobs, and had always been very successful in what he was doing. And he came to the radio station one day, and he didn't ask me for a job. I was the owner and president of the company and general manager, but he asked somebody else for a job, and they hired him. So he was working for me, and he had been working there for a while. And we never talked about business outside of the radio station. Just it wasn't something that I thought was healthy for the radio station, for my son and I to sit there and discuss what was going on inside the business. But one day we were sitting at home, we were having dinner, and it was just the two of us. And he said to me, he said, "Dad, you intimidate people at the radio station." What? I intimidate people? Through my career in radio, what I had always tried to do was be a part of the team and, and get out and do things. And he said, "You intimidate people." And when I asked him why, he said, it looks like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you're not smiling, and you don't look happy, and you've lost your enthusiasm. And I had to really do a personal check on myself, because I was not an example of what I was expecting out of everybody else. I was the antithesis of what I wanted other people to be. I wanted people to be enthusiastic and enjoy what they were doing. And here I was giving off this aura of being negative. So that was a great wake up. So are you an example? Are you an example of what you are expecting of others? That's a great question to ask. And as leaders, we really have to ask that question all the time. Am I that example of what I want other people to be within my organization? Am I carrying myself and conducting my life in a way that I would want others to mirror? Great question. Question number 4. Am I getting the best out of my team? Sometimes I love that, I love that question. Am I getting the best out of me? As Xavier writes here, think of your employees as a mirror that reflects your skills. The quality of the work that they provide is the best testimony of the strength of your leadership. You are there to epitomize their performance and help them become the best version of themselves. And your employees should know that. You should let them know that. So am I getting the best out of my team? Now, my thought process in that is that sometimes we only look at what our results are. Are we hitting our budget? Are we doing the things that we want to do? And that's where we grade the performance of our team. Yet when you really break it down to the individual, and knowing, going back to that first thought of, our job as a leader is to help people become the best version of themselves. Are we accepting a lesser version? Are we letting our team down, the people that work for us? Are we letting them down by just looking at what our goals are and not helping them get the best out of their skills? Well, we hit our budget, so I'm not worried about it. As long as we keep hitting our budget, I'm not worried about it. That happens so often. Our production is up, or whatever the equation is at that end. It's our job to help those people get the most out of their skills. And that's where our focus needs to be. Yes, you need to remember what the budget is and everything else. But as a leader, you want to help your team develop to the best that they possibly can be. And that's a vitally important part of that. So it's really important. So let me just go back again to say, if you've got something that you could add to this, or you'd like to add to this, please, type us a note, get us a question, put it right into the Facebook down at the bottom, comments, write your question in there. We'll get to it. Do we have any questions, Evan? Okay, share, please share.
Our first question comes from Freddie. What is the difference between leadership and management?
So there's two sides to this. This is debated all the time. And I was just working with a team of individuals the other day that we were talking about this. The management is the process side. You're managing processes. And the leadership is the people side of it. So the humanistic side is the leadership, and the management is the process side of it. What are the processes that you have in place? What are the things that you are doing as a unit? That's where the management comes in. It's refining, redeveloping, changing your processes to maximize the ability of your team to succeed. Whereas the leadership side of it is that people side. It's helping people grow. It's helping people, and it's understanding people too. That's a big part of it. Sometimes an individual is really good at what they do, and they think that that is the leadership. If I show that this is what I'm doing and I do it well and I'm out in front and doing it all the time, then I'm a great leader. Well, that's not necessarily true, because that is part of the process. It's, are you getting the most out of your team? Are you helping your team develop? That's the leadership side of it. It's helping them through their daily challenges too. So that's a big part of the differentiation between the management and the leadership. Question I get asked often is, do you have to be a good manager to be a great leader, or vice versa? Do you have to be a great leader to be a good manager? No, they're two separate areas. Many leaders are good managers, and many managers are good leaders. Yet there's many a times you see somebody can manage the process extremely well, and they don't have the leadership skills that you would look upon as a great leader, but they are able to manage those processes. Personally, I see that in engineering, in accounting, and a lot of those different areas. We see it a lot in doctors, where I've talked with and interviewed doctors where they don't even want the leadership side. All they are interested in is that medical side, and that's fine. Then you've got to find somebody who can lead the team. Plus, there's a lot of great leaders that have great charisma, personality, drive. They are out in public making things happen, yet they're probably, not the best in the management side. Then you have got to have good managers to drive the process. So those are those two areas that you do. This is a good time to interject something also about the Dale Carnegie class, because it just came to my mind, is that we put these classes on all over the world, and go to dalecarnegie.com to find a program near you. It's constantly leadership, communication, managing your stress, diversity in the workplace. We have so many programs that are there for you, and no matter where you live in this world, there's probably a franchisee near you. Here in the Gainesville area, that comes out of Jacksonville. We have a program coming up starting again April 26th. We have a program coming up in Lake City. So you can go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com, find a course, and go sign up for that. It's vitally important. But no matter where you are, Michigan, California, London, China, wherever you may be, you can find a Dale Carnegie class just by going to dalecarnegie.com and finding that. We're going to take a quick break here and we'll come back. We still have 3 more questions that Xavier suggests leaders should ask themselves. And then I have 3 questions of my own that kind of sit on top of that and make you think a little bit differently maybe about your leadership skills. So coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, this is Motivation U, the podcast.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere. If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Hi, Steve Spurrier here. You know, making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, a number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Oh my gosh, I can't even believe this. Look what you have done to my truck.
Excuse me, it's your fault, it's not my fault.
Yes, it is your fault.
No,
I am calling Jeffrey Meldon from Meldon Law.
So I'm gonna call Jeffrey, my husband.
Meldon Law, this is Jeffrey speaking.
Jeffrey!
This crazy lady here, this crazy lady, he might...
New client? Yes, but this one might be a little tricky.
Welcome back to Motivation U, the podcast. We're coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill at Celebration Point in Gainesville, Florida. Exit 384 when you're coming up or going down I-75. Cool place, farm to table type of food. It is absolutely incredible. The aura, the atmosphere, of course, you know, it's incredible to go there and just see all of the memorabilia, the pictures, the photographs, everything that is sports orientated, the museum. Absolutely, you have to visit Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and our friend Svein Dirkelbotten, who has developed Celebration Point, just a great place to go, and it's growing and growing and growing, and just a wonderful place. I want to thank Evan Miller, our producer, who is manning the questions today, and he told me on break that we have another question. So Evan, share that with us, please.
Yes, this one comes from Doreen. How does the Dale Carnegie class help with being a great leader?
Well, the Dale Carnegie class, it helps to develop your skills as a leader. One of the things that we have to do is keep in mind that all of our employees are unique people. They come from different backgrounds and different walks of life. And the things that you learn in the Dale Carnegie class are the 5 key parts are self-confidence, improving your people skills, improving your communication skills, your leadership skills, and managing stress. Those 5 areas. So when we look at the uniqueness of individuals that come from all different walks of life to be there, you want to know those employees as an individual. That takes confidence, and you have to understand how to communicate with them. You want to know how they operate, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You have to uncover what motivates them. And if you really pay attention to these different parts of their world, you may surprise yourself when you start getting the results. The best leaders empower their employees to rise above what their limits are. And if you can create that dynamic, you've won everything. And those Dale Carnegie principles help you with that. You learn how to get people to like you and to build that rapport with them. And then you learn how to gain their cooperation. And then you get into the leadership skills and how to help them develop that themselves. So, I wished that I would have had the Dale Carnegie course earlier in my life. I wished I would have been an instructor for the Dale Carnegie course earlier in my career, because it's just, it's a great aspect to, there's other companies that teach leadership. And so I'm not going to mention the other names, but somebody said to me the other day, somebody outside of the Dale Carnegie world, that they had been going through another organization's leadership training, and they were a graduate of the Dale Carnegie course. And what their comment to me was, as I was going through that, I said to myself, man, that's nothing but the Dale Carnegie course, just redeveloped. So it's really the foundation of building some of those skills that all of us need. And all of us need that. A lot of the things that you learn in the Dale Carnegie course, you say, well, I already knew that, but you didn't practice it. And that's the key to it. So I hope that answers the question appropriately. It's building the rapport, it's gaining the cooperation, it's helping lead, and also managing the stress. What the story I told a little earlier about my son was, it was the stress side of it that I was not managing well. And the people were seeing that, because when we communicate, it's not just what comes out of our mouth. It's the smile on our face, the way we carry ourselves, the way we walk, our enthusiasm, everything about us is part of that leadership. And that is what helps you really uncover in the Dale Carnegie class. So back to this Forbes article from Xavier. The 5th question is, my feedback useful, and does it help my team evolve in the right direction? how we give feedback is really important. And again, going back to Doreen's question, one of the things we learn is how to have those tough conversations, and sometimes when we give feedback to somebody, we think we're doing something really good by them. Actually, some of the words that we're using may be shutting them down, because we have to be open with our ears in order to give feedback. And it's not always what they're saying. Sometimes it's understanding what they're not saying that is part of that leadership process. So, it's important to consistently give your team the feedback on what they're doing, not just to call attention to when they do something wrong. That some leaders think that that's what it's all about. Well, we have quarterly performance reviews. That's when I tell them it's that daily basis of giving that feedback. When you see something happening that's good, applaud them, high five them, give them a thumbs up, really let them know that that is important. So it helps them evolve. It's not a revolution, it's an evolution where they're evolving in that direction. And right at the beginning of the Dale Carnegie class, one of the things we talk about in session 1 is that everybody has this in them, has something in them. It's our job as a leader to help them develop that and bring it out. So is your feedback useful? And is it helping your team evolve in the right direction? Huge, huge question that you should be asking yourself. The 6th question, how can I define the environment that I create with my team? So he writes here, think carefully. Where is the work cohesion, and how would you qualify the general atmosphere within your business? Be aware that your state of mind radiates throughout the team. You're the one that leads the dance. If you find the employee performance has become stagnated due to an unpleasant work environment, take a step back and assess your own attitude. I'm going to share a story with you very quick. Again, going back to employee engagement, we know that there's 3 drivers to employee engagement. One is that relationship with the immediate supervisor. 2 is belief in senior leadership. And 3 is pride in the organization. When you have your meetings with your department heads, which I'm sure most leaders do have those, you must instill in them that it's us as a team that people need to believe in to drive that. Are we doing the things necessary? And the 3rd thing is pride in the organization. Long time ago in my radio career, I took a job as general sales manager of a radio station of a city in Michigan. I moved my family there, uprooted them. I had young kids, and we moved there. The first week that I was on the job, I went on a sales call with one of my individuals to the big bank in our city. And we were there working with Kathy Thaler, who became a friend down the road. And we were in this meeting when the vice president of the bank walked in and kicked us out of the bank. He asked us to leave. He didn't ask us, he told us to leave. And the reason was because our radio station was not involved in the community. Now, pride in the organization. We were lacking that, and I didn't recognize it. This was long before engagement studies came out. I did not know what really was on this person's agenda. And I started thinking to myself, as I was driving back to the radio station, I was thinking to myself, my goodness, did I make a mistake by bringing my family here and uprooting them? What have I gotten into? And it was at that point that I really said, this radio station is going to be a part of this community because of what was said. And we did. We became a part of that. And the team had pride in it. And then the community had pride in it. So it's really important to create that environment that individuals want to work in. And that pride in the organization is extremely important. You know, I think of Celebration Point, and they're in Gainesville, where, you know, I've met with a lot of the individuals that work for that organization, and they love what they're making happen. Same with Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. The people that work there are very proud of the organization. And you can feel it when you walk into the restaurant. I mean, you can feel that from every employee. It's a big facility. When I used to work with Northrop Grumman, you felt it when you walked on the campus. They had an incredible pride in the organization. That's big for the environment. So remember that. You create that with your team. You don't have to be a Northrop Grumman or Celebration Point. What are you doing? And how can you define the environment that you create with your team? Because pride in the organization is a big, big part of driving employee engagement. So that I love that question. How can I define the environment that I create within my team? The seventh question that is asked in this article is, where can I improve? And something happens at times with leaders. I don't know what it is. We get to this point where we're like in charge of whatever the organization is, and we start becoming finger pointers. Not everybody. I'm not saying that everybody does that, but we become finger pointers. And it's always other people that are the reason that is holding us back. And that question that we look at is, where can I improve? Let that one sit in for a second. How many times have you asked yourself, where can I improve? Now, it's nice to think about that. Are you doing anything about it? What are you doing about it? I love when I get in front of a class the first night and we start asking individuals why they're there. And some of them are there because their boss sent them there. Some of them are there because they've heard it's a great program to develop their skills. But there's always one or two individuals in the room that say, I need to invest in myself. I need to improve my skills. Going back to that statement that I used earlier, whatever it took you to get you to where you are is no longer good enough to keep you there. That's a driving force in people's lives. You know, I personally read constantly, try to develop, find ideas, look for different thoughts, I want to see people that are succeeding and what's making them succeed and how you can keep driving that forward. So where can I improve? And as Xavier writes here, this is the most important question that should naturally flow from all the questions you have asked yourself before. Of course, it's never easy to pinpoint our own mistakes, but unless you're superhuman, there must be some things you can and should improve in your leadership. Real strength lies in your ability to anticipate and then react. Remain humble. If you sense that something is wrong with your leadership, check in with your people and ask for an opinion. Boy, that's transparency right there. Somebody that is, hey, you know, I remember going back to that first time I ever got a leadership role as a local sales manager of a radio station. I told the people that I was, one day I was part of them and the next day I was their leader. And I said, if I ever forget what it took me to get here, please mention that to me. And one of my salespeople one time said to me, Bob, remember what you told us that first day? And you've fallen off that path. It was an eye-opening experience for me. And it really helped me. So answering these questions fully and honestly can help you move in the right direction as a leader. And I'll just go through those, all 7 of them again. The first one, what motivates me to be a leader? 2, what are my goals and are they clearly communicated? 3, am I a living example of what I'm expecting out of other people? Is my enthusiasm where I want their enthusiasm to be? Am I getting the best out of my team? That's number 4. Number 5, is my feedback useful? And does it help my team evolve in the right direction? Number 6, how can I define the environment that I create within my team? How can I define the environment that I create with my team, and where can I improve? If you look at those 7 questions, and there's a ton of articles out there, 20 questions, 7 questions, 12 questions. This was an article that I really felt as a leader that if you ask these questions of yourself on a monthly or quarterly basis, that you're really going to constantly stay in front of the group. Now, I've added a couple of questions to this. In the last 10 minutes here, we can share these. My first question that I added to this is my behavior consistent in a positive way? Do I every day come to work with the right attitude to help lead my team in a positive way? And is it consistent? Or do I have these spikes and these lows, highs and lows? Am I going up and down in my behavior where people ask the question, in my own sense, what Bob am I getting today? You want to be consistent in the way that your behavior is, so that, in constantly going, this is consistent, constantly going up. What we're trying to avoid are the highs and lows. Do I fly off the handle one day and then come back in a cheery mood the next day and expect people to respond in a positive way? Think about that. Am I real critical one day and then come back in the next day as a cheerleader? What is that? What vibe is that sending to my team? The best leaders are consistent. They find that place where they are and they're in a positive way, consistent every single day. It doesn't mean you have to be this, this optimistic individual all the time. There's a reality to life, and you need to discuss that. But are you consistent in a positive way? Second question is, here's one for you. Would I like to work for me? Would I like to work for me? I'll let that sit there for a second. Is your behavior something that if you worked for yourself, if you work for that person, would you like to come to work every day? Would you like to be treated that way by your boss on a daily basis or by your supervisor? Would I like to work for me? I always had this thing that when I was a salesperson, I would think sometimes when my mind would start wandering, who is the sales manager that I would like to work for? If I ever get into that position, I'm going to try to be the sales manager that I would like to work for. Then when I became a sales manager, if I was ever asked to be a general manager, I'd like to be the general manager that I would like to work for. Now, I didn't always hit that. That wasn't something that I could do on a consistent basis. Yet to ask yourself that question, would I like to work for me? I think for some individuals, you'll say, yeah, I'd love to work for me. I like the way that, things are going. Yet, would I like to work for me? That's a great question to ask yourself. And then the third and final question, and this one beats right into my heart. Would I like my son or daughter to work for me? Am I the type of leader that I would encourage my son or daughter to work for? Do I treat people in a way that would be a place where I'd want them to work? Now, Evan's letting me know we have another question from Facebook. Evan, what is that question?
This one is actually from Jose Raven, who was on 2 weeks ago.
Yes,
He asks, what are some books on leadership?
There's a ton of great books on leadership. I've got a whole bunch of them, and Jose, I'll share some of those with you. How to Win Friends and Influence People, for me, is like the number one leadership book. Tony Robbins has got some great books on leadership, but I go back to that first one, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was written, back in the late 20s and early 30s of the 20th century, and it's as pertinent now today to the development of leadership as ever. That's not just a homegrown Dale Carnegie, hey, I'm trying to promote the book. That book really teaches you how to be a leader, how to communicate, how to develop the skills of interacting with people to be a leader. So I'll throw that one out there as that. Now, personally, I try to find a lot of things that will help my personality develop as a leader. So I read a lot of books that are biographies, biographies of individuals that I admire, Abe Lincoln and individuals like Martin Luther King, those type of books that I can learn from how individuals have overcome that. But I hope that's an answer, Jose, that you can deal with. But if there's some other books, I'll go through my library here at my house and share some of those titles with you. But I appreciate that question. As we wrap up here, I just want to go back to that last question that I asked. Would I like my son or daughter to work for me? If you were going to send your child, your flesh and blood, out into the world to work for somebody, how would you like them treated? Because you know what? Other parents are sending their flesh and blood, their kids, to work for you. And how are you treating them? A story came up in class the other night where we were talking about inspirational people or events in our lives. And one of the talks that the individual in the class gave was about their first boss and how that individual inspired them to want to seek this career. And it was amazing to me. And I asked the question at the end, what are people going to say about us 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 10 years from now as leaders? What are the things that they're going to say? because it's our responsibility when those individuals come in to work for us, that first job. What is the impact that you're making on their career and their life? A young lady one time, I was giving a talk on leadership, and she said that she had just graduated from the University of Georgia, and that her first job was a disaster. And she had told us some of the things that had gone on in that. And I really felt bad, because as a leader, we let her down. And I've also heard talks where franchisees in the Dale Carnegie world, 40 years down the road, didn't know if they were cut out for what we do. And because of their interaction with their first boss, encouraged them to stay the course. And here are individuals that have been franchisees for 40 years, all because of their relationship with that very first person. So some great questions to ask, some great ways of learning to get along in life as a leader. And I encourage you to seek your own improvement. That seventh question that Xavier asked in that article is, what can I do to improve? Again, for my incredible engineer, producer, Evan Miller, I appreciate your help in putting this together. And I encourage you to always seek the answers that you need or that you want, and don't ever rest on your laurels. Try to improve every single day in everything that you do. And as a leader, show that enthusiasm. Mr. Carnegie said it was the little known secret to success. Bring that enthusiasm to work every day. For Evan Miller, for myself, this is Motivation U, the podcast.